If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as follow me and subscribe to me on all my other social media platforms. What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with another album review for you guys. And this time, I am talking about the latest offering from British death metalers Memoriam with Rise to Power. So yeah, we are back talking about Memoriam. Now, of course, I believe I reviewed their last album that came out in 2021, and I thought that was a pretty good album. Of course, for those who don't know, yeah, Memoriam, a band that Carl Willits from Bolt Thrower formed after Martin Kearns from Bolt Thrower passed away in 2015, and Memoriam's more or less a tribute to Martin Kearns. And here we are with another album. I believe this is their 5th album overall. So let's see how Rise to Power stacks up. Now, one thing I definitely do want to note is with the production. It's Russ Russell doing the production once again. I believe he's produced the last 2 Memoriam albums. And he does a good job at kind of providing more heft in the production, but still kind of giving the overall vibe of the album an old school feel as far as the production and the mix goes. And definitely the production on this album has more of that like old school, early to mid 90s death metal sound to it, but with just maybe a little more heft, and that's because of the modern musical recording age. But we kick things off with Never Forget Never Again, 6 Million Dead. And definitely right out of the gate, you're going to get a couple of moods that you're going to get throughout the album, and that's like doomy melodies and killer grooves. And this track does a good job at mixing both together, and a lot of the grooves, especially on this track and as well as the title track, kind of feel a little bit like Obituary a little bit. But when you have those more doomy melodies on top, it kind of separates them from Obituary a little bit. But towards the end of the opening track, it does get into this dark death doom section that definitely made me think immediately of Asphyx. The song Total War starts off with this like big chunky almost thrash riff, and then you get this like really cool melody in here that definitely screams classic Bolt Thrower, like Cenotaph or The Fourth Crusade, like those 2 songs. And then on top with those melodies going on, it's doomy, and then you just get this big thrash break, I think, in the chorus of the song, and it just adds more energy, and I was like, dude, this is really fucking cool. So you got groove, doom, and thrash on this track. Then it goes into I Am the Enemy, which kind of starts off similar to the opening track. You have this dark, doomy melody, and then it just gets into flat-out oppressive death doom after that. But then those grooves kind of come back, and the riff and the beat that you get feels so catchy to the point I actually was kind of dancing a little bit. It kind of felt a little dance-friendly, which was weird, but it was catchy and it made me do that. And then you have like a couple of tracks like here, as well as the following track, The Conflict Is Within. You get like slow D-beat stomps, but with melodic guitars on top. And then speaking of The Conflict Is Within, begins with a cool bass line, which was really cool because really for the most part, the bass on here, you can tell there's bass going on, but I think it's just more or less following the guitars. Like, the bass doesn't really have, like, any moments of shine where you can clearly distinct it from the guitars. Other than here in the beginning of The Conflict Is Within, like, the bass line you do get in the beginning is really cool. On top of, like, this eerie guitar melody that almost feels a little bit like a dark Iron Maiden melody. And then it gets into, like, more hardcore grooves, and it kind of makes me think of bands that do the hardcore grooves pretty well, bands like Gatecreeper or even 200 Stab Wounds, only less brutal than 200 Stab Wounds. And then again, slow D beat, haunting melody comes in at the end when it gets back into being more Death Doom oriented. Annihilation's Dawn, one of the more energetic tracks. Like, you get these cool, like, almost thrashy riffs on top of, like, double bass work and, like, off-time snare beats that, again, brings back the Obituary vibes. And then the second half of the song is led by a dark melody and hardcore drum build-ups into a punchy breakdown. And then the album kind of lulls a little bit with All Is Lost, the following track. Like, it does start off with some cool, vicious riffs that have punch, but the song as a whole kind of relied too much on trying to build tension, but you didn't really get much payoff with those tension-building moments, and it kind of took a lot of the draw of this song away from me, because it's like they kept building up with like all these drum flurries and like these big like kind of moments on the guitars, but you didn't really get a payoff to it. Though there was a cool melody on top of a cool groove towards the middle of the song, but most of the song just kind of felt a little bland and generic and too over-reliant on building stuff rather than paying that stuff off. The title track, though, does kind of bring me back a little bit with some tension building, but you do get a payoff after the melodies and the drums get things started. You get back into more of those almost like Obituary type riffs, but with more melodic progressions, but it maintains a nice energy. And then, again, a much slower Doom section that brings back the Asphyx feels. And then you get probably the best, maybe the best breakdown of the entire album. And then the closing track and the longest track of the album at over 6.5 minutes, The Pain. I love the way it starts with like these tribal beats and percussion and acoustic guitars to build atmosphere. And then you get more Doom grooves, like it sits right in between like a bolt thrower groove and an Asphyx Doom section. Like, it's like right smack in the middle. But the drums have cool moments where the tom work is more or less providing atmosphere to the grooves and the Doom that's going on. But then you get some like cool tremolo riffs on top of a hardcore groove before another big breakdown. And then you get this one riff towards the end of the song that almost made me think of Judas Priest a little bit. And I thought that was a really cool touch on the album, because overall, when it comes down to leads, there weren't very many on here. There was only 3 leads that I could highlight. Like in the song Total War, you get this like cool, quick-fire, melodic lead that has like a little bit of shred going on. And then All Is Lost and The Pain do have a cool, like, atmospheric melodic lead, but with the lead in All Is Lost, it was just taken away from me because of what I was talking about with not paying off much in terms of that song. But the way they did do the leads on here, it was more or less done for atmosphere rather than shred. And of course, like the riffs, you do get some badass catchy riffs on here. Now, Carl Willett's vocals still have a ton of energy and punch to them. Granted, he's much older now. I mean, hell, he's a few years away from turning 60. But he's still able to just bring out brutality in his voice. The drum work has some really cool grooves, but it also does do the Doom drums very well. But when the drummer does get thrashy, he can get thrashy. But like I said, this album mainly has, and I think this is maybe a complaint I have about the album, apart from the song All Is Lost not being that great of a track, this album has mainly 2 gears, groove and Doom, but they do play those 2 gears pretty well. And I did like the fact they tried to vary it up with some faster sections, like in Total War, that big thrash moment that comes through was really well done, but they didn't do enough of that, and that's kind of been a problem that I've had with Memoriam. Like, the last album was pretty good. This one, like, this album to me was kind of like a tale of 2 halves. Like, the first half of the album was pretty solid, like, some really good stuff in the first half. Second half kind of trailed off a little bit because of All Is Lost and that song really dragged this album down a lot for me. But overall, this is still a pretty good album. Now, do I think it's better than the previous? I might say yes, so for that, I'm going to give this album an 8 out of 10. I think this is a pretty good album. It's just, I feel like if they would have added more thrash moments to break up the doom and the grooves going on here, or added just some more energetic moments, and also if the song All Is Lost could have been worked on to provide more payoff moments on the tension building, I think this album would have been a lot better. But that's just my opinion. What did you guys think of Rise to Power by Memoriam? Let me know in the comments below, and until next time, horns high, see you guys later.